Good evening, and welcome to the Midnight Spook Show here on the Horror Metal Channel with your host, Hellhound. I've got a really good one for you guys today. This is something I talk about a whole lot with my friends. This is the Who Would Win Horror versus Battle Tag, created by Rob from MovieReviewTime. I was tagged by Sean Erschen, so check out his video, check out the original video by MovieReviewTime. Subscribe to both channels, all that good stuff. And as usual, Sean and I agree on a lot of these answers, but there's a little more diversity this time, so, I'll try to explain all my choices a little differently than he did, just, for the sake of versatility. And let's go ahead and get started. I love talking about, I wish there was more horror crossovers. I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see some of my favorite characters duke it out and see who to win. It'd be very interesting. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I could spend hours talking about this, so I'll try not to spend too much time on each answer, but I do want to give my reasons why I think each one would win. Okay, so number one is Pamela Voorhees from Friday the 13th, played by Betsy Palmer, or Annie Wilkes from Misery, played by Kathy Bates, of course. Now, they're both very deranged. They're very disturbed individuals, very unhinged. However, now, Annie Wilkes has killed people before, and we don't know what she's done in the past either. There could have been lots of other horrendous, grotesque things that she did, even before the events of the movie. So they both killed people, but Annie Wilkes is a little more of an obsessive, creepy stalker type person, whereas Pamela Voorhees was a straight up murderer. I mean, she killed people. That's what she did. I feel like she was a little more creative and a little more cunning and crafty. She used a different weapon each time. She was really brutal too. She liked to make people suffer. So Annie Wilkes, I think, was like a little scarier as to what she put that one person through, and she was terrifying. Both gave an excellent performance. Betsy Palmer and Kathy Bates both did well with their respective roles. I think I'm going to go ahead and say, overall, Pamela Voorhees, I think, would win. I think she would kind of maybe outwit Annie somehow, and I think she might be a little stronger too, maybe a little tougher, maybe a little more experienced. I mean, she did lose to Alice at the end of Friday the 13th. Alice kind of kicked her butt during the climax, but I think Ms. Voorhees would come out on top overall. It'd be a close one, though. To question number two, Chucky from Child's Play versus the Leprechaun from Leprechaun. Yeah, we have Charles Lee Ray and Killer Doll form, voiced by Brad Dourif, or the hilarious Leprechaun, voiced by Warwick Davis. Now, a lot of people put these in a matchup because they're both small. They both have very small stature. And that's pretty much the only reason why. Plus, they're both really funny, and they both have a lot of wisecracks and one-liners. Now, I like the Child's Play franchise way more. I'm a much bigger fan of the Chucky character. I like the Leprechaun movies, the ones with Warwick Davis anyway. And so I want Chucky to win, but realistically, well, not really realistically, but in all seriousness, as Sean Erschen pointed out, the Leprechaun does have powers. He is magical. Now, Chucky has a limited knowledge of black magic and voodoo, and if you watch Cult of Chucky, he revealed a brand new power that he now has, so that would definitely be a force to be reckoned with. But I think it'd be a close one. It doesn't say I want Chucky to win, but the Leprechaun does have a lot of powers. I think he probably could win if he used his powers. But then again, Chucky is pretty clever and cunning and manipulative and very angry, so it'd be a close one. But I think, unfortunately, as much as I'd want Chucky to win and come out the victor, I'd kind of want I think I'd be more believable if the Leprechaun used his powers. But then again, both of them, the thing is about all of them have been defeated by an ordinary human, so, you'd think that, a supernatural being could beat them pretty easily as well. So but the thing is, it's really interesting to think about. But yeah, I think the Leprechaun probably would win, although I'd definitely be rooting for Chucky all the way. But anyway, let's move on. Number three, Matilda Dixon from Darkness Falls, not a big fan of that movie, versus Elle Kedward from Blair Witch. Elle Kedward, probably, overall. They're both powerful. They both have divine powers, otherworldly abilities. But I think the Blair Witch would, Elle Kedward would get the best of Matilda. Number four, Evan Rendell from Dr. Giggles, played by Larry Drake. really funny character. He literally giggles as he's torturing his victims. Versus Dr. Alan Feinstein from The Dentist. Now, I think Dr. Giggles, that's his nickname, is a much more unhinged, very disturbed character, whereas Dr. Feinstein was actually kind of normal. He was just pushed over the edge. We kind of watched him slowly get more and more, become more and more of a monster over the events of the movie. He started, relishing in torturing his patients, and, he really wanted to see people suffer. He became very much a sadist, whereas Dr. Giggles was already, pretty much crazy to begin with. I mean, he had kind of a sympathetic side to him too, a little bit. It's a great comparison, though, because they're both very similar characters. But I think Dr. Giggles was just a little more sadistic and a little more sinister. I think he'd end up winning. I feel like Dr. Feinstein kind of had a limit. He kind of seemed like he regretted his actions somewhat, especially at first, maybe towards the end. And then in The Dentist 2, where he changed his name to Dr. Kane, I think he was much more malicious. So, but yeah, I think overall Dr. Giggles would win. Rest in peace, Larry Drake. He was a great actor. Dark Man, Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. He was always good. The Tales from the Crypt episode. But anyway, let's move on. Question number 5, and I really like this one. Ash Williams from the Evil Dead franchise, played by Bruce Campbell, versus Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I love both characters, and but overall, I don't want Ash to come out on top, and I also think that he would come on top, and it'd be believable. Not only has he defeated a whole army of Deadites and constantly battled evil throughout the ages, even when he's an older man, as seen as in the TV show. I think he would outsmart Leatherface for sure. Leatherface has been beaten by ordinary humans several times, and there's nothing ordinary about Ash. He's just a freaking badass. He's just a heroic, awesome, tough guy who doesn't take crap from anybody, and he always comes out on top. He's always the destroyer of evil. Bruce Campbell's just a man. Ash Williams is my favorite protagonist in a horror movie ever. Leatherface is one of my favorite villains. I'd still be rooting for Ash, and I think overall, realistically, I think Ash would beat him. It'd be awesome to see a chainsaw duel between those two, though. I would love to see that. Make it happen, Hollywood. Alright, so number 6, Ghostface from Scream versus Ben Willis, a.k.a. The Fisherman from I Know You Did Last Summer. Well, that's an interesting one. Those movies are often compared. I think I Know You Did Last Summer, it was based on a book, but I think the tone of the movie was kind of more inspired by Scream. As Sean Erschen pointed out, the Ghostface is a different person each time, whereas the Fisherman is always Ben Willis, even in the third movie. Spoiler alert, did I ruin that awful movie for you? I'm sorry, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter, it sucked. Ghostface was a little more human, a little more clumsy. He kind of, got his ass kicked a lot by, his would-be victims. And Ben Willis is a little more supernatural, a little more, like, shadowy and mysterious. But overall, somehow, I think, well, depending on which version of Ghostface it is, there's been so many. There's been Billy, there's been Stu, there's been Mickey, there's been Mrs. Loomis, there's been Roman, there's been Sydney's niece, and then Rory Culkin's character. I forget their names at the moment, but I haven't seen Scream 4 in a while. But I don't know. Something makes me feel that Ghostface would win somehow. I don't know. It'd be more believable and realistic if Ben Willis won, because I said he's kind of more of a supernatural character. In Part 3, he was a straight up zombie. I feel like Ghostface would... Nah, just kidding. Ben Willis would win. The Fisherman would probably win. He'd take that hook, just jam it right in Ghostface's face, and just rip his jaw off, and he'd win. So, gotcha. All right, question number 7. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th versus Victor Crowley from Hatchet. Oh, that's an interesting one. They're definitely very similar characters, and they were both played by Kane Hodder. Jason played by Kane Hodder 4 times, and Victor Crowley played by Kane Hodder 4 times, and the only actor to have played him. That's a tough one, because Victor Crowley was kind of more like he was almost like a ghost. He was like a supernatural entity. He definitely had a physical, solid form, because we saw damage inflicted upon him, but he always came back somehow. But then again, so does Jason, and I don't know. It's a close one. They're both really strong. They're both very similar. Probably the only difference is that Jason wears a mask. That's one of the only differences between them. I feel like Victor Crowley might be a little more muscular and more tough, and a lot of his kills are more hands-on, though some of Jason's are too. I'd be rooting for Jason all the way, and overall, I think Jason would end up getting the best of Victor Crowley, though it probably wouldn't be for good. Victor would still come back, but I think Jason would ultimately win the battle. All right, question number 8. Jacob Goodnight from See No Evil, played by Kane. Pretty good movie, not too bad. Versus Michael Myers from Halloween. That's a no-brainer. Say it with me now. Michael Myers. Okay, moving on. Number 9. Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street versus Candyman from Candyman, played by Tony Todd. I'm getting tongue-tied. I'm a huge Robert Englund fan, a huge Freddy fan, a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. And I like Candyman as well. I think they both have a lot of otherworldly powers and extraordinary abilities, but it depends on what the scenario is. Is it in the dream world? I mean, would the Candyman even fear Freddy? Is it in the real world or the other realm, the other side where Candyman is? There's a lot of... It pretty much depends on the scenario, but I think overall, if they're both out in the real world, I think... No, Candyman still usually has his powers, though, doesn't he? So, okay, I think in that way Candyman would win, but I think, like, if neither of them had their powers, I mean, it's pretty much the hook versus the knives on the gloves. So, I want to say Freddy would win. I'm a bigger fan of his character, but even aside from that, even bias aside, I still think he would win somehow. I think he might out-manipulate, outsmart Candyman, if without his powers, I mean. So yeah, it's a close one. That one really depends on the scenario and what the circumstances are, but I'm going to go with Freddy on that one. So let's go ahead and move on. Number 10, Hannibal Lecter from, Silence of the Lambs, the Thomas Harris novels, Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Rising. Then their movie adaptions. I'm a much bigger fan of the books, by the way. I've read the books. They're way better than the movies. Hannibal Lecter versus John Kramer, a.k.a. Jigsaw from Saw. Wow. Both of them are very, very intelligent, and they're more cunning and manipulative. In a fight, in a fist fight, like in a physical fight, if they're both locked in a room without any of their weapons or any of any of Jigsaw's traps or anything. Tobin Bell is John Kramer. He's awesome. Both of them are awesome. And whether we're talking about the Anthony Hopkins Hannibal Lecter or the Brian Cox one or the Mus Mikkelsen one, in a physical fight, neither one of them really have much physical aspects going for them. It'd be, so that'd be kind of a weird one. They both rely on their cunning. They both rely on their smarts, for sure. So in a physical fight, I think it'd be close, but I don't know. They're both like older men who aren't, very built physically. They're not really very strong. But something tells me, without his traps, without pulling the strings, Jigsaw's just a master manipulator. Without the setup and without the preparedness, I feel like he doesn't really have much going for him. Hannibal would probably just go psycho on him, just grab him, start eating his face off. He would bite his nose off and eat his eyeballs and he'd probably eat him alive and probably kill him. He'd probably, in a battle of wits, it'd be a close one because they're both brilliant, genius masterminds. But I think Hannibal would probably win in a physical fight because he's done stuff like that before. He'd just grab him and start eating away at his face. But it'd be hard because Tobin Bell, Jigsaw might be expecting that. He might be well prepared. He might have a trap hidden somewhere too that nobody knew about, or that somebody else set up that that was actually somebody else's diabolical plan that turned out was actually done by somebody else. The twists go on and on and on. But I think Hannibal would win overall, though it would be close. Okay, question number 11: John Ryder from The Hitcher versus Rusty Nail from Joyride. Oh, that's an interesting one. In a physical fight, well, Rusty Nail was a really big guy. I feel like John Ryder was, he was pretty tough, and he was kind of smart, too. He was kind of cunning and manipulative. I'm going to go with John Ryder, especially the Rutger Hauer version, the original, And, yeah, Rusty Nail was, of course, voiced by Ted Levine, Buffalo Bill, but it was played by some other guy, some overweight, redneck-looking guy. I'm not sure what his name was, but I think John Ryder would win. Question number 12, Samara from The Ring versus Kayako from The Grudge. Samara. I think she was far scarier, and I think she had, more, I don't know, she was, how do you kill her? What would you do? They're both ghosts. They're both, evil spirits, so it'd be hard. But I think, if they both, played, they played by their own rules and stuff, and they were both, in their realm or whatever, they were both physical, if they both became, solid and could hurt each other, I think Samara would probably win overall. Pretty much the other girl was just kind of, she was really creepy, but, I think Samara was a lot more evil and, a lot more sadistic. I think she'd win. Question number 13. This is a hard one. Pennywise from It versus Killjoy from Killjoy. The Killjoy movies are pretty awful, but they're kind of dumb fun. I think they actually got better the more they went along. The first one was pretty bad. The second one wasn't very good. But then the part 3 onwards, I think they were a little more watchable and entertaining. It, of course, is a way better movie, way better novel, way better character. Depending on the Tim Curry version or the Bill Skarsgård version. The thing is, would Killjoy fear Pennywise? Because if not, I feel like Pennywise wouldn't have much of a chance. They both have otherworldly powers. They both can manipulate reality and pretty much break all the rules. They can bend the fabric of, the physical world. So it'd be a close one. But I think, if fear wasn't a whole factor and Pennywise had all of his, everything at his disposal, he had all his powers and he wasn't limited, and so was Killjoy, I think Pennywise would win. But if we're going by Killjoy had to fear him, and if he wasn't scared of him, because I mean Pennywise has been beaten by a group of kids, so you know, I mean surely Killjoy could stop him. In that case, Killjoy would win. But again, it's a matter of circumstance. It's a matter of the situation, you know, the surroundings, and what situation they're in. So that's a tough one. I'd like to say Pennywise overall, I like him better, but realistically, you know, if Killjoy's probably not going to fear him. But you never know. You never know. There's probably something he fears, maybe. I don't know. He did start out as a human, I think. He's like an evil spirit. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Question number 14. Norman Bates from Psycho versus Jack Torrance, The Shining. I want to say, like, I picture Norman Bates, like, when he doesn't have the personality of his mother taking over, and he's, you know, it's his mother personality that's the really evil, really dangerous one. You know, I feel like he's in his hotel, he's just kind of checking people in, just being a good little, you know, mama's boy, and being a good little normal guy. He's kind of creepy, but that's about it. And then Jack Torrance would be totally deranged, just holding his ass, you know, breaking down walls and stuff, and, you know, cutting down doors with his axe. You know, here's Johnny. I feel like he's just purely psychotic. When he was at his most deranged, he was much more scarier and brutal, I think, than Norman Bates. So I think Jack Torrance would win, though it kind of depends on the circumstance too. Would it be his mother personality taking over? I think that would give him a little more of a chance, but I still think Jack Torrance would win, especially if it had his axe or his croquet mallet, if you're going by the novel or the 1997 version. All right, so question number 15: Pinhead from Hellraiser versus the Tall Man from Phantasm. That's a good one. They're both otherworldly beings. You know, they're both kind of demonic, and they both have powers. I think overall, if Pinhead had, you know, all his abilities at his disposal and wasn't limited or hindered by anything, you know, he'd make the hooks go into the Tall Man and rip him apart. Of course, the Tall Man would come back, but I think Pinhead would find a way to win the battle. They're both very sinister, very evil beings. Well, Pinhead's a little more neutral in most interpretations. You know, angels to some, demons to others, all that. I think Pinhead would probably get the better of him, but the Tall Man would come back for more, so it wouldn't be the end of the battle. But I think Pinhead kind of has an advantage in a way, but it'd be close. The Tall Man's a force to be reckoned with in his own right, but I'm going to go ahead and vote Pinhead, so just to get things moving. Question number 16, Pumpkinhead from Pumpkinhead versus the Xenomorph from Alien. Well, the aliens have been beat by humans before, but I think an alien would be really hard to kill. They're both really awesome, really brilliantly designed monsters. I think overall the alien would win. I feel like there's not really much Pumpkinhead could do to the alien. I mean, God, even the alien's blood is like acidic and will burn you. So even if you manage to injure it somehow, even its blood is dangerous. So I think the alien would. I love Pumpkinhead, but I think the Xenomorph would probably win on that one. It'd be an interesting fight, though. He'd definitely have an interesting opponent, but I think the Xenomorph would win. Question number 17: The Collector from Collector versus Chrome Skull from Laid to Rest. Those are very similar movies. That's a really good comparison. Kudos to Movie Review Time for coming up with these scenarios. They're very similar characters. It's a tough one. Chrome Skull was kind of a he was kind of more a typical slasher. He was just kind of more of a... Well, they're both humans, masked humans. God, it's a tough one. I'm going to go with the Collector, though. I feel like I don't know, for some reason he seems a little more menacing, a little more intimidating to me in some ways. Not that Chrome Skull wouldn't definitely give him a run for his money. It'd be very close. I'm going to go with the Collector. I actually like Chrome Skull better. I like the Laid to Rest movies better, but I'll go with the Collector for now. Maybe more on that later. Maybe get back to me on that. Number 18, the Predator from Predator versus the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. That'd be interesting. The Creeper's very hard to kill, but the Predator has a lot of weapons at his disposal and a lot of infiltrating abilities, and he can turn invisible. He can do all these. He's got all these technological gadgets. The Creeper is shown to have had weapons too. And he's got some pretty interesting abilities. I think the Predator would win. I think the Predator would just blow him to pieces or something. I know it'd be really hard to kill the Creeper, especially following the rules of the movies. But I think the Predator would win overall. Though it would be close. It'd be very close. Number 19, Leviathan creature from Leviathan or the Thing creature from The Thing. That's a really close one too. I kind of want to say The Thing, because I feel like it would just keep assimilating and keep regenerating and everything, and especially if you don't have a flamethrower. If those guys didn't have a flamethrower, they would have been screwed, Good thing they had flamethrowers. I think we'll go with The Thing. It's a very close one. I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody's going to point out that'd be inaccurate in the comments. But, you know, these are all a matter of opinion anyway, really. It just all depends on the circumstance. I'm going to go with the Thing. And finally, question number 20, very good one. Gremlins versus Critters. I know everybody likes Gremlins better, but I'm going to throw the Critters. They were more brutal and more horrific. Mouths of, full of rows and rows of jagged teeth. I feel like they were more evil. They were there to kill and eat people. The Gremlins kind of were more pranksters. They were more mischievous. They just like to mess around and have a good time and party. And yeah, they hurt people too. But I feel like the Critters were a little more brutal, a little more dark, a little more demonic. They were more horror characters. The Gremlins was kind of more of a family comedy movie. Definitely a lot of horror in it, but I think overall the tone of Critters is a lot darker. But the movies aside, I think even the Critters were more darker, more horrific characters. They were just hellish, brutal aliens. Whereas I think they would probably beat the Gremlins. Then again, the Gremlins are really hard to kill though too, and and if you get them in water, they're just going to multiply. So there could be thousands of them against the Critters, which are like a dying breed, as revealed by the movies. They're a species that they're an endangered species essentially. So it'd be close. I'm still going to vote for the Critters. Like if it was one Critter versus one Gremlin, I think the Critter would just eat the Gremlin. So, but again, it's close. Plus, Gremlins can't walk around in sunlight, and even normal light weakens them. So hell, I feel like the Critters could have a little more of an advantage because they can actually go out during the daytime. Overall, I'd say the Critters, but the Gremlins might be smarter though. But I don't know. The Critters can talk too in their own language. I don't know. Let's spend too much time on it. I'm just gonna say the Critters. So all right, guys. Well, anyway, this is a great video, a great idea for a tag. Kudos to Movie Review Time. Check out his original video. Subscribe to his channel. Check out Sean Ershen's video. He is the one who tagged me, and he did a great job as well. Thank you for watching my channel. This has been the Midnight Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and I'll see you guys next time.